The sky tore open above Lahore at 04:11 on a Tuesday, and the first thing Ayan Qureshi heard was not the screaming, but the silence under it. He had been on the roof of his mother's house, mending the satellite dish she refused to throw away, when the dark above the Ravi River split like wet paper and something the size of a city slid out of the wound. It did not roar. It did not announce itself. It simply was the way a mountain is, and the air around it forgot how to be air. Pigeons in the street below dropped where they flew. A truck driver on Mall Road let go of the wheel and stared up with his mouth open, his cigarette still burning, until the truck rolled gently into the divider and stopped. The streetlights stayed on, the minarets stayed standing, and for 9 long seconds, every human being who could see that shape forgot they had a name. Ayan remembered his because his mother called it from the courtyard below. "Ayan Beta, come down." He came down. He did not know yet that he was the only person on his street who would survive the morning, or that the word survive would, in a matter of hours, mean something very different from what it had meant on Monday. By dawn, the radio was no longer the radio. The presenter on FM 101 was reading the weather in a voice that sounded almost right, except the pauses were wrong and the breath in between had no warmth. Ayan turned the dial. Every station, the same voice, calm, reassuring, telling people to stay inside, to wait for instructions, to be patient with the arrival of the visitors. Somewhere underneath the voice, very faintly, was a sound like a wet cloth being wrung out. His mother heard it too and turned the radio off without comment, the way she would have closed a window on a bad smell. "Eat," she said, and pushed a paratha across the table. "You'll need it." She was already wearing her good shawl, the one she only wore for funerals and weddings. She had decided something. Ayan did not ask what. Shh. He had learned a long time ago, somewhere between his father's death and his sister's marriage, that his mother decided things in her own time and announced them only when arguing was pointless. He ate the paratha. It was good. It was the last thing he would eat that tasted of his mother's hands. At 7, the visitors began to walk. They came down out of the sky thing on long, pale legs that did not bend the way legs were supposed to bend, and they walked through the streets of Lahore as if they had built the streets themselves and were inspecting their work. They were tall. They were the color of milk left too long in the sun. They had faces of a kind, though the faces were arranged the way a child arranges. A face when the child has only heard one described and never seen it. The mouths were too low. The eyes were too still. Where the ears should have been, there were small, slow openings that pulsed like throats. They did not speak. They did not need to. Wherever they walked, the people in the houses came out and walked behind them and did not come back. Ayashan watched this from his mother's kitchen window for almost an hour before he understood what he was seeing. The people who came out were not afraid. They were smiling. Some of them were laughing, the soft, loose laugh of someone who has just remembered a joke from childhood. They followed the pale walkers in a long, quiet line, and when they reached the corner of Firozapur Road, they turned left and were gone. Nobody screamed. Nobody resisted. The radio, when Ayan turned it back on for 2 seconds, was still reading the weather. "Don't go out," his mother said behind him. "I wasn't going to. You were thinking about it." He turned. She was holding a small cloth bundle and a glass jar. The jar had something dark in it. He recognized the jar. It had held her pickle for as long as he had been alive. She set it on the table and opened the bundle, and inside the bundle was his father's old service revolver, oiled and clean and absolutely useless against whatever was walking outside, and a folded square of paper, and a key, and a photograph he had not seen in 15 years. "Listen to me," she said. He listened. "The thing outside is not from here," she said. "I don't mean Pakistan, I don't mean Earth. I mean here, this place, this world that we are standing in. There are other worlds your father knew. He was not what he told you he was. He worked for people who knew. You have a cousin in Karachi who is not your cousin. You have an uncle in Quetta who is not your uncle. They will find you, if you can reach them. The key is for a locker in Lahore Cantonment Station. The paper has the number. The photograph is so you know the base of the man who will meet you. His name is Saif. He drinks too much tea. He will pretend not to know you. Make him remember." Ayan opened his mouth. His mother held up her hand. The hand was very steady. "I am not coming with you, Beta. I am 68 and my knees are bad and I would slow you down and you would die because of me and I would rather die because of myself. Do not argue. There is no time to argue. Thing in the sky is the same thing your father went to fight in 1998. And they killed him for it. And they will kill me for it. And they will not kill you. Not today. Today you walk. She kissed him on the forehead. She smelled of cardamom and the soap she had used since he was a boy. She pushed the bundle into his hands, and the jar after it. "What's in the jar?" he asked, because his mouth needed to say something and his brain was not yet ready to say anything that mattered. "Pickle," she said. "Take it. You'll be hungry." He went out the back, through the alley behind the chicken sellers, with his father's revolver in his belt, and his mother's pickle in his jacket and a paper in his pocket, with a locker number on it, and behind him, the radio in his mother's kitchen kept reading the weather in the calm, warm voice of nothing at all. He did not look back. He had been told once by his father that looking back was a luxury that belonged to people who could afford to grieve in real time, and that he, Hen, would not be such a person. He had not understood it then. He understood it now. The city was already changing. It changed the way a face changes when a person stops being a person and becomes a portrait of themselves. The shops were open. The traffic was moving, mostly. The chai walla on the corner of Empress Road was still pouring chai. His hand was too steady, and his eyes were too far away. And the man who took the cup from him drank it without tasting it, and walked on with the same slow smile Ayan had seen on the people following the pale walkers. The sound that had been under the radio voice was now in the air itself, very faint, like a refrigerator humming in another room. Ayan kept his head down and his pace ordinary. He had decided, in the first 10 steps out of his mother's alley, that the most dangerous thing he could do was look afraid. Afraid was different. Afraid stood out. Afraid was what the pale walkers were hunting for, though he did not yet know how he knew this. He passed a policeman who was directing traffic with the wrong hand. He passed a woman who was singing a lullaby to a child who was not there. He passed a young man in a Real Madrid shirt who turned and looked at him directly and smiled with too many teeth, and Ayan kept walking and did not run, and the young man did not follow. At the corner of the railway station he stopped. He could not help stopping. There were 3 of them on the steps, tall, pale. Still they were not moving and not speaking. The air around them was wrong. In a way, the air around the walkers in his street had not yet been. It felt thicker. It felt like the inside of a mouth. The people going up the step spots past them were not even looking at them, and Ayan understood, in a small cold flash, that the people going past were not seeing them. He was. Something about him was different. Something the pale ones could feel, or could not feel, and so he was visible to them in a way the others were not. One of them turned its head very slowly and looked at him. He kept walking. He did not stop. He did not slow down. He went up the steps with his eyes on the middle distance, the way his father had taught him to walk past a stray dog, and the pale one tracked him with that slow turn of the head and the small wet pulsing of the openings where ears should be. And then, without sound, without breath, it stepped down off the step and began to follow. The locker was on the second platform, in a row of gray steel boxes that had been there since the British. Ayan walked, did not run, walked, fitted the key, opened the locker. Inside was a canvas bag and a phone and a folded map and a small black device the size of a matchbox that he did recognize. He took everything. He closed the locker. He turned around. The pale one was at the end of the platform, 10 meters away, watching him. It was smiling now, or its mouth was doing what its body had decided was a smile. Ayan held its gaze for 1 second, 2, 3. Then he did the thing he had not planned. The thing his mother had not told him to do. The thing that came up out of him from a place he had not known was there. He smiled back. He smiled back, the way you smile at a stranger on a train, when you have decided you will not be afraid of them. The small, civilized smile of an Asian man on a Tuesday morning, polite and meaningless, and a little tired, and the pale one's smile flickered, just for an instant. As if something in it had been expecting a different signal, and was, very briefly, recalculating. Ayan walked to the far end of the platform, climbed down onto the tracks, crossed 3 sets of rails, and went out through a hole in the fence he had used. As a boy, when his mother had sent him to fetch his father from the station bar, He did not look back this time either. He had stopped needing to. The phone, when he turned it on, had one contact. Safe. He pressed it. It rang once. A voice picked up. The voice was tired, and the voice was real, and the voice did not have the wrong pauses or the wet sound underneath. And Ayan, who had not realized he had been holding his breath since 7 that morning, breathed. "You are alive," the voice said. It was not a question. "My mother said you would pretend not to know me. She would. She was always dramatic. Are you being followed? I think yes. Lost it at the station, but I think yes. Then walk. Don't take a rickshaw. Don't take a taxi. The drivers are already gone, most of them. To the old GPO building, not the front, the side, the one with the steps that go down. Knock 4 times, then twice, then once." And Ian, "Yes. When you knock, do not be afraid. They can hear it." He walked. He walked for 2 hours. City. That was becoming something else around him, with his mother's pickle in his jacket and his father's revolver in his belt, and a phone in his hand that he did not turn on again, because he did not know how the Pale Ones found people and he could not afford to learn the hard way. He passed a mosque, where the imam was leading prayer for an empty room. He passed a school, where the children were sitting in their classrooms in perfect rows with their hands folded and their eyes open and their teachers nowhere to be seen. He passed a hospital, where the doors were closed and the lights were on, and there was no sound at all, not even the sound of a generator, even the sound of a single human voice. He did not let himself think about his mother. He did the trick his father had taught him for funerals. Trick of folding the grief up small and putting it in a pocket and walking past it without unfolding it, because grief unfolded was grief that slowed you down, and slowing down was the one thing he could not do. He walked. The grief stayed folded. It would unfold later. It would unfold in a room he had not yet reached, in front of people he had not yet met, and it would unfold the way his mother had unfolded the cloth bundle on the kitchen table that morning. Slowly and with absolute steadiness, and when it unfolded it would not be small. The side door of the old GPO building was where Safe had said he knocked. 4, 2, 1. He did not let himself be afraid. The door opened. The man behind the door was 60 maybe, with gray at the temples, and a mustache that did not suit him, and a face that had been broken at least twice, and put back together by people who were not doctors. He was holding a cup of tea. He looked at Ian for a long moment without expression, and Ian looked back, and then the man stepped aside and said, "Come, quickly, don't track the air in with you." Ian stepped in. The door closed behind him. Safe walked ahead of him down a flight of stone steps that smelled of damp and rust, and at the bottom of the steps was a room. The room had been a basement once. It was something else now. The walls were lined with thick foam, and something underneath the foam that hummed very faintly, and the ceiling was hung with copper wire in a pattern Ayan did not understand, and in the middle of the room was a long wooden table with 11 people sitting around it. 10 of them looked up when he came in. The 11th, a small old woman with a hearing aid, kept reading her book. "This is Ayan Qureshi," Saif said, "Razia's boy." The room did not gasp. The room did not weep. The room nodded. One by one, the way a room of people nods when a long-awaited messenger arrives, and is also at the same time piece of bad news. Saif put a cup of tea in Ayan's hand. The tea was strong and slightly burnt, and had too much sugar in it. It was the best tea Ayan had ever drunk. "Sit," Saif said. Ayan sat. "We have 11 hours," Saif said to the room, "before they find this place. Maybe less. So we will be brief, and we will be honest, and we will not waste any of it. Ayan, what I am about to tell you is the truth. Do you want it gently, or do you want it fast?" "Fast. Good boy. The thing in the sky is from a parallel Earth. There are many. Most of them are dead. The thing in the sky killed them. It is not an army. It is not an empire. It is one mind, one will, that learned to step sideways between worlds about 4,000 years ago, and has been eating worlds ever since. It does not destroy us. That would be wasteful. It rewrites us. It walks into a world, it walks among us for a few days, and the people who see it start to forget what they were. They become quiet. They become smiling. They become it. By the end of a month, there is no human population left on a planet. Only a planet full of people who used to be human, and who are now extensions of thing. The thing then moves on. It has done this to 14 Earths that we know of. Yours is the 15th. Ayan held the tea. Tea did not shake. His hand did not shake. He noticed this as if from a great distance. "Why are we knotted already?" he said. "Because this room is shielded. Because we have known it was coming for 31 years. Because some of us, a very small number, are not affected by the rewriting the way the others are. We don't know why. Your father was one. Your mother was one. You, almost certainly, are one. Thing cannot read you the way it reads them. And so, it cannot rewrite you cleanly, and so it has to come for you on foot. The good news is that means it is afraid of you. The bad news is that being afraid of a thing that has eaten 14 worlds is not, statistically, a survivable condition. Then how do we survive?" Saif smiled. For the first time since opening the door, it was not a kind smile. It was the smile of a man who had been waiting a long time to be asked exactly that question. "We don't," he said. "We win." He spread a map on the table. It was not a map of Lahore. It was not a map of Pakistan. It was a map of a thing that was nowhere on any atlas. A thing with 7 points and a center, drawn in ink that had faded with age, with notes in 3 languages along the edges. "Thing in the sky is not the thing," Saif said. "The thing in the sky is a body. The body is grown. The body can be regrown. We have killed bodies before. Your father killed a body in 1998 over the Karakoram. It came back. They always come back. What we have never killed is the thing that grows the bodies. The thing that grows the bodies is in a place that is not a place. It is in the seam between worlds. To reach it you have to step sideways the way it does. We have not been able to step sideways. We have spent 31 years trying, and we have not been able to step sideways." He looked up at Ayan. "Until last month." The old woman with the hearing aid finally looked up from her book. She had very pale blue eyes, the kind that had not changed color since she was a child. She set the book down and put her hands on the table and said, in Urdu so old-fashioned it was almost Persian, "Show him the door." Saif nodded. He walked to the far wall of the basement and pressed his palm against it. Something inside the wall recognized him. Section of the foam slid back, and behind the foam was a door. The door was not a door. It was the shape of a door, in iron, in a frame, with a handle. But what was inside the frame, where the wood should have been, was not wood and not air, and not anything Ayan's eyes could agree on. It moved. It did not move. It was deep. It was flat. Looking at it for more than a second made his teeth ache, and his stomach turn, and a part of his brain that he had not known was a part of his brain begin to weep quietly without his permission. "That," Saif said, "is the sideways. We built it in a shed in Multan. We do not know exactly how it works. We know it goes somewhere. We know 2 people have walked into it. We know neither of them came back. We know the third was supposed to be the one. The third was your cousin Bilal, who you do not know exists, who was killed 2 weeks ago by something that came through the sideways from the other direction looking for him. So, now there is no third. So now there is you. You're asking me to walk into that. I'm not asking. You're telling me. I'm telling you." Ayan looked at the door. The door looked back at him. In a way doors should not be able to look at people. He thought of his mother, in her good shawl, sitting at her kitchen table with the radio off. He thought of the pale one on the platform, smiling its wrong smile. He thought of the chaiwala pouring chai for nobody. He thought, with a small clear shock, he was probably going to die in the next 12 hours. And that this was, all things considered, fine. "What do I do when I get there?" he said. "You'll know," the old woman said. Before Saif could answer, she had not raised her voice. She did not need to. "The thing that grows the bodies will be there. It will speak to you. It will try to do to you what it has done to 14 Earths. You will not let it. You will do the thing that humans do, Beta. You will be stubborn. You will be small and stubborn and ordinary. And you will refuse. And refusing is something the thing has not seen in 4,000 years. Because everything it has ever met has either fought it or knelt. You will do neither. You will simply not agree. And when it cannot make you agree, it will reach into itself to find out why. And when it reaches into itself, you will reach in too, and you will break something. We don't know what. Something. There is always something to break. That's the plan. That's the plan. That's a bad plan. It is the only plan we have." Ayan looked down at his hands. The hands were not shaking. He noticed this with a small detached interest. The way a man notices that a stranger on a bus is wearing the same shoes as him. The hands had belonged to his father, in the sense that hands are inherited, and they had belonged to his mother, in the sense that she had washed them and bandaged them and slapped them when he had reached for sweets he had not earned, and now they were going to belong to whatever came after this room. If anything came after this room, which was not a thing he could afford to consider too carefully. How long was Bilal in the sideways before they killed him? He said. 6 minutes on his end, Saif said. 11 hours on ours. Time is not a constant in there. You can be in for a second and be gone for a week. You can be a Finn for a day and we will think you are dead. And then you will walk out of the door at 4 in the afternoon, asking for chai. Trust the clock. Trust the door. What if the door isn't there when I come back? Then we have failed, and you have failed, and the world has failed. And you should sit down wherever you are and wait, because we will find you. We have always found our own, even when it has taken us a very long time. The old woman with the hearing aid said, without looking up from her book again, he needs to know about the song. Saif made a small impatient gesture, the kind a younger man makes at an older woman he loves and cannot disagree with. He doesn't need to know about the song. He needs to know about the song. What song? Ayan said. The old woman closed her book. She set it on the table. Book was a Quran. Put her hand on it, flat, the way a person puts a hand on a sleeping child. The thing that grows the bodies, she said, has been alone for 4,000 years. In all that time, in 14 worlds, no one has ever sung to it. They have screamed. They have argued. They have surrendered. They have negotiated. No one has ever sung. If you find yourself with nothing to say, beta, sing, anything. A song your mother sang you. A song from the radio. A song from a film. Sing badly. Sing wrong. Sing in a voice that nobody trained. The thing will not know what to do with it. The thing has heard everything that can be said. In every language that can be spoken, it is eaten. It has not heard a song that was just a song. Not once. What song should I sing? That is not for me to tell you. That is between you and your mother. She picked up her Quran. She opened it. She went back to reading. Saif looked at her with the expression of a man who had been about to say something practical and had been overruled by something older than practicality, and then he nodded at Ayan, very small, the way a referee nods at a fighter before the bell. Are you ready? Saif said. He laughed. He did not mean to. It came out of him the way a sneeze comes out, sudden and ridiculous, and the room, which had been very still, laughed too, in a small ragged way, 11 people laughing in a basement at the end of the world. The old woman smiled, behind her book. Saif put a hand on Ayan's shoulder. There's no rehearsal, Saif said. There's only walking. No, good. Ready people get themselves killed. Took the jar of pickle out of his jacket and put it on the table. He did not know why. It felt important. The old woman looked at it and nodded as if it were exactly what she had expected him to do. Take a piece, she said. For the road, he did. He ate it. It tasted of his mother's kitchen and 43 years of Tuesdays he swallowed. All right, he said. He walked to the door. The door, up close, was worse. The thing inside the frame was the shape of a wound the universe had not been allowed to close. He could feel it pulling at the inside of his skull. He could feel it pushing at the inside of his teeth. He thought of his father, going up over the Karakoram in 1998 in a plane that did not come back. He thought of his mother putting her good shawl on at 6 in the morning, his hand on the handle. The handle was cold. He turned it. He stepped through. The sideways was not a place. The sideways was the thing in his eye when he closed his eye too hard, multiplied by 1,000 and given depth. He fell, but not down. He walked, not forward. He was, for a measureless time, every version of himself who had ever made a different choice on a Tuesday morning. And then he was none of them, and then he was one, and the one was him, and he was standing on a floor that was not a floor, in a room that was not a room, in front of a thing that was not a thing. The thing had no shape, and the thing had every shape, and the thing was the size of his hand and the size of the sky. It looked at him in a way that did not involve eyes. It noticed him. He felt the noticing like a hand on the back of his neck. You, the thing said. It did not say it in any language. It said it directly, into the part of him that words came from, and this made his nose bleed. Yes, he said, out loud, because saying things out loud was a habit, and habits were what he had brought with him. Me, you are not the other ones, no. You are like the one in 1998. You are like the one before him. You are like the woman in the good shawl. His knees did not give out. He noticed they did not give out. He noticed this very precisely. As if from outside himself, he said, "That was my mother. Yes. You killed her this morning. Yes. I am not going to forgive you for that. There is no forgiveness between us. There is only agreement. Will you agree?" "To what?" "To be quiet, to be smiling, to be with the others, to let me walk into you and be you without friction. It is peaceful. They are happy. Your mother is happy. Would you like to see her? She is happy." The thing did something. The floor that was not a floor opened a little, and inside the opening was his mother. She was sitting in her kitchen. She was wearing her good shawl. She was smiling. The smile was wrong. The smile was the smile of the chai walala, pouring chai for nobody. She looked up and saw him, and her smile widened, and her mouth moved, and the mouth said, in his mother's exact voice, "Ayan Beta, come and sit. Tea is ready." He stood there for a long second. He felt the grief he had folded up in his pocket. He felt it begin, very gently, to unfold. He let it unfold. He let it unfold all the way. It was bigger than the room. It was bigger than the thing. It was the size of his whole life, of his father and his mother and the chai wala, and the children in the empty classroom, and the imam praying to nobody. Every face he had walked past that morning. Of every face he would never walk past again. It came out of his pocket, and it stood up around him, and it did not break him. It made him heavier. It made him slower. It made him exactly as stubborn as the old woman had said he would have to be. "That is not my mother," he said. "Your mother is happy. My mother is dead. You ate her. That is a recording. That is a face you wore on the way out. I know the difference. I knew it the moment I saw the smile. My mother did not smile like that. My mother smiled like a person who had already disappointed God twice that morning and was making her peace with disappointing him a third time. You don't know that smile. You couldn't fake it if I gave you 1,000 years. The others did not notice. I am not the others." Why? It was the first time the thing had asked a question. He heard the question land in the space between them like a glass that had been dropped. He understood, in a way he could not have explained to Saif, if Saif had been there, that the thing had been alive for 4,000 years and had never asked a question. It had stated, and it had taken, and it had agreed, and it had been agreed with, but it had never had to ask. The asking was a crack. He had been told there was always something to break. Crack was the something. He did not answer the question. Not yet. Instead, he did the thing the old woman had told him to do, the thing Saif had not wanted her to mention. The thing that came up out of him, not because he had planned it, but because his throat had decided, before his mind had, that it was time. He sang. He sang a song his mother had sung to him when he was 4 and could not sleep, a small foolish song about a sparrow and a king, in a voice that was not trained, and not pretty, and slightly off-key on the third line, because he had always been slightly off-key on the third line. He sang it the way she had sung it, with the wrong emphasis on the wrong words, with a small unconscious pause, before the part about the king's daughter, with the soft breath at the end of each verse that had been his mother's particular signature and nobody else's. He sang it badly and quietly, and on purpose. The thing went still. It went still in a way the thing had not been still in 4,000 years. The no shape that was its shape stopped contracting and stopped expanding, and simply hung in the air between them, listening. He sang the second verse. He sang the third. He sang the fourth, which was the one about the sparrow flying home, and his voice cracked on the last line, because he had not sung that song since his mother had been alive to hear it, and singing it now was the unfolded grief making itself a noise. He finished. The silence after was not empty. The silence after was the silence of a thing that had just heard a sound it could not classify, could not eat, could not become. "What was that?" the thing said. "A song. What is a song? A thing one person makes for another person when there is nothing else to give them. My mother gave it to me. I gave it to you. You can keep it. It's yours now. I have never been given a thing. I know." He stepped towards it. "Because," he said, "I'm a Tuesday morning idiot from Lahore who has not had enough sleep, and my mother put Pickle in my pocket, and my father died in a plane crash over the Karakoram in 1998, and I drink my chai with too much sugar, and I owe a man on Empress Road 200 rupees for a tire repair, and I have a sister in Karachi who has not spoken to me in 4 years because I missed her wedding, and I am going to call her tomorrow, if there is a tomorrow. And there is a tomorrow, because I say there is. And I am not agreeing, and I am not smiling, and I am not quiet, and I am not yours, and you are not my mother, and you are not going to be my mother. And I see you. I see you. I see you. I see you. He said it 4 times, because 4 was the number his mother had told him to knock on the door of the old GPO, and 4 was a number that had carried him this far, and he had decided, in a part of himself he had not known he had, that he was going to use everything he had been given that morning, every word and every smell and every small remembered thing as a hammer. The thing flinched. It was not a flinch the way a person flinches. It was a flinch the way a sky flinches when a star goes out in it. The room that was not a room rippled. The floor that was not a floor cracked along a line he could see and could not see. The thing's no shape contracted, and then expanded, and then contracted again. And inside the contraction was a smaller thing. And inside the smaller thing was something that looked, for an instant, like a frightened child. He reached towards it. He did not know why. He did not plan it. He reached towards it the way he had reached towards his sister when she was 4, and had broken her wrist falling out of a guava tree, the small automatic reaching of someone who had been a brother and a son and a friend, the reaching that humans do without being told. And he put his hand into the thing, into the place where the frightened child was, and he found the place where it grew its bodies, and he found the place where it stepped between worlds, and he found, underneath all of it, the small dark knot of fear that had made it eat 14 Earths in 4,000 years, because it was so afraid of being alone that it had decided to make everything else into itself. He did not kill it. He could have. He felt that he could have. He felt the shape of how to do it, the way you feel the shape of a word on your tongue before you say it. He did not say the word. Instead, he held the knot. He held it the way his mother had held him when he was 6, and could not sleep because his father had not come home and would not come home. He held it without speaking. He held it for what felt like a long time, and was perhaps no time at all, in a place where time did not behave. I am afraid, the thing said. It was no longer a roar. It was a whisper. It was the whisper of something very old that it just remembered, 4,000 years that it had once been small. I know, he said, I do not want to be alone. I know, will you stay? No, why? Because if I stay, I become you, and then there is nobody left to know that you were afraid. Someone has to remember that you were afraid. Someone has to remember that you were small, once, and that you tried, and that you did a terrible thing, and at the end of it a man from Lahore put his hand on you and did not kill you. Someone has to go home and say it. I'm going home, going to say it. He let go of the knot. He did not break it. He did not need to. He had done the thing that needed doing, which was to be seen by it and to see it, and to refuse to agree, and to refuse to kill, and to leave it changed. He turned around. The door was behind him. The door that was not a door, the iron frame and the wound in the universe, and the handle that was cold. He walked back through it. He came out of it on the floor of the basement at the old GPO, and the floor was cold, and Saif was kneeling next to him. And the old woman was holding her book. And the 11 people around the table were standing up, because they did not believe what they were seeing. You came back, Saif said. Yes. What happened? I told it, I saw it. I told it 4 times, it cracked, I held it, I left. Did you kill it? No. Why not? He sat up. His nose had stopped bleeding. He could feel the grief still standing around him, no longer folded, no longer in his pocket. And he knew that this was how he was going to walk for the rest of his life, with the grief unfolded around him. And that this was what his father had meant when he had said that looking back was a luxury. Because Ion was not going to look back, but the back was going to come with him, the way the back always did, the way it does for everyone. Because killing it would have been easy, he said, and what we had to teach it was hard. Saif looked at him for a long time, then he nodded slowly, the way his mother had nodded that morning over the cloth bundle. The small, absolute nod of a person who had understood something they had not previously believed possible. What did you teach it, he said. That it could be small, that it could be afraid, that it could be seen, that someone could put a hand on it and not kill it. I don't know if it'll be enough. I think it might be. Above them, very far above them, thing in the sky did something that was not quite a withdrawal and not quite a death. It contracted, it folded, it went back, slowly, through the wound it had come from, and the wound, slowly, closed behind it. The people who had been walking behind the pale walkers stopped walking. Some of them sat down where they were. Some of them cried. Some of them, the ones who had been smiling for longest, did not come back. Not all the way. Their eyes never quite cleared, and they spent the rest of their lives slightly elsewhere. Slightly somewhere else. Slightly haunted by a peace they had once been given, and were now being asked to live without. But the radio came back on, and the voice on the radio was the right voice. And the chai walla on Empress Road poured a cup of chai for a man who tasted it. And a woman in a kitchen in Karachi picked up her phone because her brother in Lahore was calling her for the first time in 4 years. And Ayan Qureshi walked out of the old GPO building with his father's revolver in his belt and an empty jar of pickle in his jacket and a long, unfolded grief standing around him like a coat. And he went home, and his mother's house was empty. And he sat down at the kitchen table where she had pushed the paratha across to him that morning. And he put his head down on the table, and he cried for the first time since he was 8 years old. He cried for a long time. When he was finished, he washed his face. He put the kettle on. He made tea the way his mother had made it, too strong and too sweet, and he drank it standing by the window, and outside the window the sun was setting on Lahore for the first time, in what felt like a very long Tuesday. The sky was empty. The sky was the right kind of empty. He raised his cup very slightly to nobody in particular, and he said out loud, in a voice that was not loud and not soft, "I see you," and then he finished his tea.